All right, here we go, everyone. Great to have all of you joining us today. We are going to hang out for just a minute here to make sure that everyone can join and get settled in. We have some amazing guests today, so be sure to grab a drink and a snack so that you don't miss a thing. I am coming to you from Bozeman, Montana, where summer is officially here. It is green and sunny, is beautiful, and I could not be happier about it. Lacey, where are you joining us from, and how are you?
I am doing great. I am in Fort Worth, Texas, where it has been summer for a very long time. We start summer in on Valentine's Day. So
So
it is
jealous.
officially boiling season in Fort Worth. So
Perfect. Martin, how about yourself? Where are you at?
I am in New Jersey.
Okay.
Here we are, East Coast. Yep, yep.
Does it get hot in New Jersey? I've never been to the East Coast.
Yeah, it does. It gets hot. It's not as bad as down south, but the winters are brutal. I'll just leave it at that.
I hear ya.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
get
yeah,
like that in Montana as well.
yeah.
All right. Well, we're just past the hour, so I'm officially going to get us started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Arno, and I am the Field and Event Marketing Manager on the XYPN marketing team. Today, I am so glad to host this event, Closing the Deal, Easy to Execute Strategies RIA Owners Can Use to Convert Prospects to Clients. It is such a mouthful. With XYPN members Lacey Rogers and Martin Scott. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. If you have any questions for us to address throughout the session, please submit them in the Q&A feature, as that will be easier for me to monitor than if you put them in the chat. We do have some questions that were submitted beforehand, so we will be answering a mix of both those and questions that are asked live throughout our conversation. Also, be sure to register for next month's free event, Independent Firm Owner Compensation, How to Walk Away from a Salary and Create a Sustainable Fee Structure. That event will be held on July 12th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and you can find the link to register in the chat. If you are interested in learning more about membership with XYPN but aren't quite ready for a one-on-one visit, our network navigators now host monthly office hours, so you can join them on June 21st at 11 a.m. Mountain Time to get all of your questions answered in a group setting. And again, we're going to put the link to register for that in the chat. Now, enough of that boring stuff. Let's get to the reason all of you have joined us today. I would love to have our panelists introduce themselves. Martin, will you please tell us a bit about yourself, your firm, and your journey with sales?
Yeah. My name is Martin Scott. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm the owner of a firm called Lasting Wealth Principles. I've been an owner since January 2020. Yep. And yeah, just my experience with sales. Yeah, it's just something you just have to get used to. You just have to get comfortable with and embrace it. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Lacey, how about yourself?
so I'm Lacey Rogers. I've been in the industry for about a decade now, but I've owned my own RIA, the Dedicated Baller, since early 2021. My background in sales is that I have been in sales since I was about 3 years old. So I've sold everything from minnows and clothing and short stint managing a lingerie department, also financial sales, all kinds of stuff. So I've sold pretty much, I owned a chain of fireworks stand. So I've sold pretty much everything that you can think of in one way or another.
Amazing. Perfect. That's so helpful. So I just want to frame our conversation for our attendees today. We're really going to focus on the sales process and the customer journey and how to convert clients to prospects to clients. And so we're not going to talk about lead generation in this conversation. We do have one coming up in a couple of months. So keep an eye on our events page, and we will be talking more about marketing, the broader top of the marketing funnel. So today we're just going to focus on that prospect journey. So that being said, Lacey, would you talk us through your sales process? So what I mean by that is if I am a consumer coming to you, I'm thinking about financial advising, where if I send you an email, say, hey, I'm thinking about this. Where do you go? Where do I go from there? So what is your process from me reaching out to you to say that I'm interested to me becoming a client?
Sure. So I actually have a pretty short sales process from the time that they get introduced to me until when we're actually moving forward to clients. I find that I can figure out if somebody's actually interested in becoming a client pretty quickly, and make that conversion on a really fast track. So usually the longest part is getting somebody to actually pick up the phone, right? We get a lot of leads that come through from various places, and a lot of times we can't get them to pick up the phone on the other end, right? So there might be 10 or 15 touches that we have, varying between emails, phone calls, text messages, just trying to get in touch with that person. But usually once we get in touch, we have anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, depending on what the prospective client needs, just kind of getting to know them, getting to know me. And then usually after that, we're setting up, if they're still interested in moving forward, we're setting up a 30-minute Zoom call where I can get to know them. And if they're partnered up, their significant others, that we can kind of bring the entire family into the process. Because I don't know if anybody deals with this the way I do, but if one partner is on board and the other one's not, we go nowhere. So we like to establish that early in the process. And then from there, it's a decision time. So we don't have any more meetings unless they're ready to move forward and sign paperwork. So after that 30-minute Zoom call, they're either ready to move forward or they're not. I will answer additional questions if they have them via like text message, email, that kind of thing, but moving on from there.
Okay. And what do you think lends itself to making it so easy for you to decide if someone's the right fit? Do you have a very specific niche that you work with? Or I guess, how do you get that feeling or make that decision on your end so quickly?
For me, my first rule is no jerks. So that makes it pretty easy. Sometimes, get on the phone and I actually say that to prospects on the call. I will say, listen, that is something I want from this relationship, is that every time I call you, you're not like, oh gosh, why is Lacey calling me? Oh no, I'm in trouble. And then same thing from them. I don't want to look at my phone. I worked at the broker dealer before this, and I had a lot of clients where I looked at the phone and thought, oh no, not this one again. And I don't take on those people anymore. So that's something that's the personality side of it is pretty determinative. And I do a good job of explaining kind of what is that, what's on offer. This is what I bring to the table. And I do that in the context of hearing their needs first. So in that 30-minute call, the first conversation I have, the opener is, so what brought you to look for a financial advisor? Why are you looking for a planner? And so I let them talk for most of the call. And then I present the offer that I have. This is what I do in business in the context of your needs. And at that point, I've already answered every question that they're going to have, because they laid out exactly what they needed. And I'm answering exactly what I can offer to meet those needs, usually in 5 minutes or less on my end. And so they end up feeling really heard. I have the opportunity to listen very well and see if I think they're going to be a good client. And so usually once we do that, it's a pretty straightforward. They know exactly what I have to offer. I know exactly what they need, and makes it really easy to know whether or not it would be a good fit going forward.
Okay, great. One more question for you, Lacey, before we go to Martin. I think it might be helpful for people to know what services you offer. So do you do hourly planning? Is it a monthly subscription type, annual fee? Do you do AUM? Tell us about that.
Oh, and I didn't answer where you asked about my niche. So I actually work with homesteaders and hobby farmers, mostly people in their 20s and 30s. So that starts me at a pretty low end on the price point. So I do offer annual fee, or I can break that down monthly if they prefer. I offer hourly services, but I very rarely take clients on for that. I usually have a very specific need and then can move on. So I don't usually find people that only have, when you start talking to them, they don't usually have one very easy to answer question, right? It might be, oh, do I roll over my 401k or not? And I think as planners, we all know that's not an easy question. That's a full plan to answer that question. And so I put the hourly fee in the context of kind of what they're getting for signing up for a full year. And I've almost never, I think I've had one hourly client sign up. So almost never do they choose that option. They see the value in kind of getting that full planning service. And I'm sorry, did I miss?
Nope.
Nail it. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you. Martin, how about you? Will you walk us through what your prospect to client journey looks like?
Yeah, it's pretty simple process, and from time to time that process changes, right? I mean, I don't go too far off the rails, but sometimes it doesn't go always perfect or as smooth, but generally, we have an introduction call for about 30 minutes. It's just getting a chance to know the prospect, them getting a chance to know what I do, right? Then we kind of go to your quote unquote discovery meeting. I know that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. We get a little bit more in depth. I answer some more specific questions. And similar to what Lacey said after that, we're not going to really meet again until there's a commitment.
Mhm. Okay.
Right. So I'm not, I mean, a lot of times in that second meeting, we can walk away from that and say, are we moving forward?
Mhm.
Right. Because, or if they want to still think about it, again, I'm not going to commit, to spending any more time until we get a commitment, so yeah, so it's a pretty simple process. There's a lot to it, but in the interest of time here, that's just, that's as simplified as I can make it at this point. Yeah.
Mhm. And do you have a niche that you work with?
Uh, Interesting. Not right now. I'm actually in the process of developing a niche. For the first 3 years, I've been kind of general, and kind of growing this. When the pandemic started, I've been growing this business. It's been pretty interesting growing virtually, and I've just kind of taken on, um, you know, uh, 30s and 40s individuals, families. That was kind of my niche, but I'm probably going to be drilling down a little bit further, more with business owners. But yeah, so but right now, 30s and 40s, married couples, professionals, I know get it. So I'm kind of moving into that space, kind of getting a little bit more focused with my niche at this point. That's kind of in the background as we move forward. I just realized that I'm doing well in the practice, but I'm kind of, they quote unquote casting too large of a net at this point.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's in the works as we speak.
Great. And
Yeah.
what services do you offer?
Yeah, so basically I'm really, the core of what I do is the financial planning. I have that separate at this point right now, from the investment management piece. I do projects, but I'm kind of trying to get away from those. And I don't really do any, I don't do any hourly. So primarily the financial planning, minimal AUM, investment manager at this point, yeah, so the core is really the financial planning piece for my firm.
Okay.
Ongoing.
Great.
Ongoing, yeah. Not, I don't really like to do the whole one-time
Sure.
planning. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Great. Another thing I wanted to touch on is technology. I think that one of the biggest issues in sales is that people can fall through the cracks easily. So, what technology are you utilizing in your practice to stay on top of your pipeline? In terms of CRM, I think would probably be the big one. Any other tips and tricks that you have for managing prospects and making sure that you don't lose track of them? And then, do you have any, secret sauce of like, do you take a lot of notes about them personally to build rapport? I don't know, anything like that we can help people out with. Martin, do you want to walk us through your technology?
Yes, CRM all the way. And I use Wealthbox, which is provided via XY Planning Network membership, which is awesome. But yeah. So I use Wealthbox, and basically, you have reminders in there when you last spoke, with the person, when you plan to follow up. So that's to stay on top of it. But when you really embrace using CRM, it really can be a great tool. If you just become a note taker, right? You have a conversation, you write down a bunch of notes, put it on their card in, or whatever it's called within the CRM. This is what they said. This is what they're looking to do. This is whatever, right? Whatever that is, you're just kind of taking notes for every single meeting. And that so yeah, so technology tip and trick, to kind of stay on top of it. Obviously use the CRM, but use the technology within the CRM to say, hey, look, this is what the person's doing. Keep the notes, keep the record. Yeah. As you said, Amy, building rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Lacey, how about you? What technology do you use for this process?
Oh yeah, using Wealthbox also, my CRM is the heavy lifter there. Kind of the secret sauce, I would say, as far as creating that workflow inside your CRM is a lot of people get really hung up on creating the perfect workflow before they ever see their first prospect. And I would definitely encourage people to just make your workflow as you're doing it. So if you're about to send an email to the client, go in the workflow. The first, 10 or 15 times you do this, go in the workflow and edit it. Add that you're sending an email, add that as part of the step, put it in where it belongs. Worry less about getting that perfect workflow up front and just letting your natural process dictate what the workflow is supposed to look like. And then just on the back end, using that workflow as a reminder system so you don't forget when you do end up in that situation with more volume.
Yeah. Lacey, just in case someone doesn't know, will you give us just a high level of like what a workflow might be? So is it you have a conversation with it? And so I had a call. So now I'm going to send an email. And then after the email, it's another call. I guess, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so the workflow kind of sets up an automatic chain of events that are task reminders in your contact management system that'll link directly to that contact. So if, for example, if my goal is, okay, I talked to the person, we've had that preliminary call, but we're going to set up the meeting. The next step would be to maybe send a follow-up email, thanking them for the call. And then the next step after that would be to set up the actual meeting, a reminder to do that. And then maybe something after that would be, okay, set a, reminder to set up, once they do set up the meeting, reminder to send a pre-meeting email, letting them know what to expect, reminders to type in my follow-up notes. I have a little bit of an ADHD issue. And so I have literally every single step that I do in that CRM. And sometimes I go through and check them off really fast. But sometimes it literally saves my butt. So that is crucial for me, having every single little bitty step there. And so no matter what it is that you're doing, it just kind of automatically does that. You space it out where you might not follow up for a week. So you can set the workflow so that it reminds you in a week, or if you want to make sure you do that tomorrow, it'll remind you the day after you have, check off that you had the meeting. And then my little trick on that end is that I never log out for the day without making sure that every task is completed in my CRM. So nothing gets, I can push it out to the next day if I need to, but everything at least gets addressed. I don't have anything that's ever overdue.
Great. No, that's super helpful. So we did have a question that was pre-submitted of where do you see the most attrition of prospects? What can you do to identify why that is happening and fix it? So I think kind of from a broader standpoint, let's talk about how your workflow has evolved as you've gotten better at closing deals, right? So did you see a weakness in your workflow specifically of like, okay, I had after I first talked to them, then there was a month before I contacted them, and then I never heard from them after that. So then I shortened it up to my video. So then I shortened it up to a 2-week follow-up, or just how did you identify pain points or weaknesses in this process and fix them? Lacey, do you want to start us off, and then we'll go to Martin?
Sure. So I would love to address, kind of aside from the things that we can control, the biggest amount of attrition that I see with prospects is people who found me that probably never should have ended up on my desk in the first place. So I specialize in young people. Sometimes I'll end up with retirees in my inbox, or I end up with people who are really interested in planning, but it's just not in their budget right then, or they're just, still struggling with getting their monthly budget under control, that kind of thing. And so most of the fall off that I see is people that genuinely are not a good fit for the firm. So I think it's important to remind ourselves as advisors, it's not always personal. It's not always something that we did wrong. Sometimes it's just the people who end up on our desk weren't meant to be there. But then of the ones that it is something that we can control, I have found that the two biggest problems for myself were bugging them too much. So I might be calling them too quickly. Like when I first started, I was having myself follow up maybe 2 days or 3 days after, an initial meeting. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget that the clients have lives. This is our job and we're doing it every day, but the clients have lives and they're busy, right? And so remembering to give more space there. So sometimes it might be 3 or 4 weeks before I follow up with a client. The first time I follow up, I usually do it pretty quickly. But any subsequent follow-ups, I usually space those out really far, 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks before I'm following up again, just because they've got kids and soccer practice and grandma's in the hospital again, or whatever it may be. And so just giving them some more space to breathe lets them know that we're working, kind of on their schedule. And so that I think has helped a lot. And also remembering that sometimes people fall off because it's something that happened in their life, right? Like, so if you are getting that kind of blow off, don't take it personally, and definitely don't, like, sharply in the relationship. Sometimes I'll just send them an email, hey, do you want me to contact you anymore? I can definitely bother you if that's helpful to you. But if it's not, just let me know, or let me know if you want me to call you back in 6 months, and leave that open-ended on their end.
Oh, that's super helpful. And so when do you stop time for that? Or maybe like, is there a certain time, if they haven't contacted you for 6 months, do you take them out of your pipeline, or do you always leave them in unless they've asked you to stop contacting you?
Oh, good question. So I send a 3-day follow-up after our like 30-minute Zoom call, send a 3-day follow-up, and then maybe 3 or 4 weeks, depending on the conversation I have with the client. I actually alter it depending on kind of the topics we were talking about. So it might be 2 weeks, might be 4 weeks, and I'll ask the clients like, hey, when do you want me to follow up? And so I'll do, usually it's about 2 to 3 days, then usually about 3 to 4 weeks. And then I'll usually wait a month. And then that's kind of when I send them the like breakup email, hey, just let me know what you want me to do. And then I move them to inactive and move on. Because if they haven't responded after 3 contacts and we've already had a meeting, they're probably not going to respond. Or sometimes they boomerang back in 6 or 8 months on their own. But as long as I've left the door open, it usually is pretty successful. But the ones that fall off, I don't see a whole lot of closing after I've been reaching out for a couple, 3 or 4 times, and they're still not responding. So I just move on and use my time elsewhere.
Great. That's excellent. Okay, Martin, how about you? How have you honed in this process that you have of reaching out to prospects?
Yeah. No, the attrition, right? Just kind of you had asked about that. It was well, what I was seeing with me, again, weakness early on was between that first call and the second call, right? It's like we have the introduction meeting, and then it just kind of, right, they don't really make a commitment, and I wasn't really like staying on top of that. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess they're just not a fit. So that's kind of where people would, it's almost like if I get to that second call, generally I'm probably going to close, right? So the way I was able to, it's a simple fix, but I had to kind of get over this mentally. It was like from that first call to the second call, I would actually put something on the calendar. Hey, let's speak again. And before we left that first meeting, excuse me, virtually, didn't leave anywhere because we're just talking, but when would you like to speak again? Right. And then if you have a time and date on the calendar to talk again. And I would always say, you can tell me at that meeting yes or no.
Mhm.
A lot of times, it will be yes, we'll be fine. Or if it's a no, sometimes they'll just kind of come up with an excuse and not even get to the second meeting. So that's kind of where I saw a lot of the people just kind of, and now we're doing this virtually so they can schedule quicker now. It's not like the old days where you had to come in, meet with an advisor at the office. Now, even people who are not really qualified, not even really that interested, they can just go right to your website, schedule something. So that's another thing to kind of be on the lookout for. It's great because it's opened up a lot more opportunities, but you also get a lot of you might get a lot of non-qualified clients kind of coming to your firm. So but that's more of a marketing thing. But yeah. Just being able to say, hey, look, let's put something on the calendar to talk again, and we can have a further conversation. That has helped me out with that weakness there, or with all the attrition.
Yeah, great. No, that's very helpful. Let's talk about that first meeting. We had a question about how do you demonstrate your value in that first meeting. So Martin, tell us about what you focus on. Your expertise in this space, the services that you offer. I guess, like, what specifically do you focus on to really show your value to this client?
Yeah, like in the first meeting, I know it sounds a little backwards and counterintuitive, but I just really bombard them with questions and let them ask questions. Right. Again, it sounds like, oh, I got to get on a soapbox and talk about how I missed that. It's like a lot of times you just kind of sound like everybody else. Right. Right. But if you're asking them questions, and letting them talk and, just keep asking them questions, and then they say more, and then you can respond to that. They say, oh yeah, I had a bad experience with my past advisor. I want more, fee for advice. Oh yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. So it's just more, again, I just ask a lot of questions, let them ask a lot of questions, let them have the floor, right? Let them do the talking, let them I still have to dictate the meeting, but just let them feel like they're of value. And then from there, I think they're getting value that way. Yep.
Great. I love that. Lacey, how about you? How do you show value in that first meeting?
I would 100% say Martin nailed it. The biggest favor you can do yourself when you're, in the sales portion of the meeting is to shut up, stop talking, let the client talk. That is the number one thing that people complain about from their advisors. Like if you look at any kind of studies that they don't feel heard by their advisors, they feel sold to or talked over or talked down to or talked where they can't understand them. And the main theme there is that the advisors are talking too much. Be quiet, listen to what your clients or prospective clients have to say, and then carry that forward through the rest of the relationship. Sometimes people can talk themselves off a ledge or into a product or whatever, as long as you just take a step back. Answer any direct questions, let them ask you the questions because they'll tell you what's valuable to them. The questions that they're asking represent what's valuable to them. And I send as an email before examples of questions that I've gotten from other clients. Some of it includes a little humor, like, ask whatever's important to you, including like your favorite ice cream flavor, right? If that's what you feel is important to have as an advisor, that's the kind of question I want to answer. So everybody has something different. I'm a pet lover and I have 2 hound dogs, which is a miracle that we haven't heard from them yet today. But I often, I have that as kind of in my email too. And I often see a lot of puppies in my client meetings. You know what? That's important to them. That connection, that they have something in common with their advisor is what's important to them. And I think they kind of assume that our qualifications as far as, do you know how to put together a plan? Do you know, what to do if I need to roll over my IRA? Do you know what happens when my kid turns 21 and they haven't up my account? They assume that we know those things, or they wouldn't be talking to us in the first place. And so I think just letting them have that personal connection is the most important thing that we can do to show value.
Great. That's super helpful. I think for any salesperson, your gut reaction is to show everything you know, right? So you want to talk and like demonstrate, like, these are all the things that I know about this and how much knowledge I have and how helpful that's going to be for you. But you're saying like, don't do that. We're going to listen and we're going to discover a need, right? Because you can fill that need, but we have to know specifically what the client has or the prospect has, what need that they're looking to have you fill. Is that what we're saying here?
Oh gosh. And if you walked into a car dealership, you think about like the, old like used car salesman. If you walk into a car dealership and somebody comes up to you and they're like, well, and I sold 47 cars this month. You're like, what are you like? I don't care how many cars you've sold this month. I care that I'm here to buy this car. Like, that's all I care about. And so just thinking about it from that angle helps a lot.
Great. So we did actually, this leads us perfectly into our next question of, so how do you feel, or how do you help train yourself feel like, okay, I'm a trusted advisor here. I'm helping this person. I'm not a greasy salesperson. I guess, did you have any of those feelings when you were first starting out, and kind of how do you train yourself out of that? Martin, do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, when I first started, I embrace it, because technically, right, we're not, again, we're fee only. We're still selling our advice. Right. So again, sales is not a bad thing. I know it gets a bad rep. It's like, I don't want to be a salesperson, but the truth is you kind of have to be, or you're not going to make any money. Right. Like, it's just that simple, especially as launching your own firm. You just have to embrace it. Right. But no, it's like, it's kind of getting over, I know I don't want to throw all these psychology terms out, like that imposter syndrome. It's like, look, I know I'm a trusted advisor. Like, I did the CFP. I study. I stay on, on top of current like events, et cetera. So it's just kind of getting past that mental hurdle. You're a trusted advisor. Again, we're CFP. You explain that you're fee only, so that takes that out of it, where they know they're not being sold a product. It is just again, getting past the imposter syndrome and embracing the sales role, knowing that you're selling advice, and just saying, okay, I'm providing value. We're not harming anybody, right? We're providing value to them. So again, I know it's kind of a little bit of a mental hurdle. So I had to kind of get over that, and say, hey, look, I know what I'm here for. I know I'm providing value, and just kind of embracing the role.
Yep. And did you do anything? Did you practice with family? As I'm trying to think of, like, if someone's truly uncomfortable with this process and gets really nervous or feels really shy about it, like, do we have some suggestions we can offer of, like, ways to get over that before you're actually in front of a prospect?
Yeah, I didn't, when I first introduced, so kind of my background, just to quickly, I had a little bit of training with this. I was in corporate America, kind of dating myself here. Yes, I've been out of college 23 years, but I'll just kind of leave that alone. No, but the first 13 years of my financial career, I was in corporate America. Then I came into financial planning. So just to kind of give a little backstory to how I learned sales. And I actually started, Lacey was talking about broker. I started at a broker dealer in 2013. So after 13 years in corporate America, 2013, I started at Guardian. Yes, I sold products. Yes, I did. But I always did it the right way, though. But I don't agree with that model, which is why I'm in fee only now. But yeah, so I was there. And again, the sales part, you had to sell, right? So I kind of came into this, right, with a little bit of a background. And to be honest with you, I got comfortable there real fast. Right. So that hurdle was cleared there because you just had no choice. Like you had to basically sell or you just got fired. Right. So I was at Guardian, I was there. But yeah. So fast forward, that's kind of how, but same concept though. You have to embrace it. You have to understand that this is how business gets done. There has to be a sale. But again, we said we're selling the advice and we know we're providing the value. So yeah, that was the quick backstory on how I got comfortable. I had the experience. Yeah.
Great. No, I think that's helpful. Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you. Lacey, how about for you?
Well, I've been selling since I was 3 years old, so I've never had the sales ick. That never was something that I had to deal with. But I will say that the reason we get the sales ick is because we think of like that used car salesman, right? Kind of back to that example. But what makes that process icky is that the person who is selling you something is trying to get you in something that you don't even want. Or something that might be outside your budget or something that wasn't exactly what you needed. So they're more focused on closing the deal than actually getting you help. So like if you're walking into a department store and you can't find your size and the associate helps you find what you're looking for, gosh, that doesn't feel like an icky process. That feels really helpful and you're really excited about that process, right? Or you get frustrated when you can't find that process. Like if there's nobody there for you to ask your questions to, it's really frustrating as a consumer to not receive that kind of help. So I think that's the key to not getting the sales ick is don't be icky. Don't sell people things that they don't need, right? If you are talking to a prospect and they're not a good fit for your firm, just be brutally honest, maybe not just totally honest. And just say, hey, you know what? Actually, you are probably a better fit for a financial coach, or maybe what you need to do is work on your budget and call me in 6 months. Like, don't be afraid to send them somewhere else that's a better fit for them. Or like, for example, I work with young people. I send retirees to my friends in the business all the time because I'm not your optimize my social security girl. Like that's just not my specialty. Don't be icky. Don't sell them things they don't need. Don't be so hungry for the sale that you're pushing them a product that they don't even want. But then on the overcoming the nervousness side, I think is what we often confuse with the ick. I gonna get some side eye here, but I tell people go to like a random bar, go ahead and order a drink, pay your tab so you can exit if you need to, and then practice telling things that aren't true. So sitting down, making up your name, making up where you are, like, hi, I'm Susie and I'm visiting my sister here and I'm from Utah, and just like go off the cuff, because if you can learn how to continue the ball rolling when you're lying, essentially, when you sit down in a prospect meeting, everything that's coming out of your mouth is the truth. there is nothing that you're saying that is not the truth. You're going to tell the client the truth about what you have to offer. You're going to tell them the truth about your experience. And it comes off the cuff a lot easier. Or an alternative to that would be like an improv class or something like that. Just learning how to roll with it when they ask you questions that you don't know, or how to pick up the ball when it gets dropped or things get weird. That's the biggest, it's not necessarily we're trying to avoid the ick, it's just the nervousness about being in front of someone in general. And so if you can kind of get practice handling a conversation that you don't necessarily have 100% control of, it's a great way to kind of overcome that stage fright. It's effectively what it is.
Great. No, I love that. So let's talk about that piece of asking for them to become a client. So we all get to this as salespeople where we have to ask them to close the deal with us. So let's talk through that. Like, when does that happen in your process? I'm sure sometimes it's organically where they just say, okay, when do we get started? What are the next steps? Like, that's everyone's dream scenario, right? Where the consumer, where your prospect actually initiates the close on their own. But if that's not happening, how do you push that? And how do you do that in a way that feels comfortable? And then like, what does it look like after that? So yes, Lacey, do you want to start us off with when do you do that and how do you do it?
Sure. So most people are pretty respectful of like time limits. So they know our like Zoom meeting is 30 minutes long. So we start to get to kind of the end of that and the conversation comes to a natural pause. And then usually what I do at that point is actually, I don't open up the close at that moment at all. I actually very intentionally have all of my prospects sleep on it. And I tell them that. I'm like, great. Do you have any other questions? Is there anything else I can do for you? Super. Then what I'm going to have you do is go home and, hang up the phone, sleep on it. Let me know tomorrow. Think about it. Especially if you have a couple in the room, give them a chance to talk to each other where you're not on screen staring at them and everything that they have to say. Let them talk to each other in private. And I find that I have had a higher close rate with that. It may sound counterintuitive to kind of push them away and have them, go away and I want to get that close right now so I know it's happening. But actually sending them and making sure that they have time to reflect. I found that the clients that I actually close are much happier and longer term, less attrition, that kind of thing, because they're I didn't sell them on it. They wanted it. We kind of talked about avoiding that ick. I'm not pushing anything on them. They definitely want it. And so when I say, hey, y'all go home, talk about it, think about it, let me know, do you want me to follow up with you or would you like to follow up with me? And then I kind of get a loose timeline. So you never end the meeting without kind of loosely scheduling when you're going to talk with them next. And so that is how I kind of move that conversation along. And usually within 3 hours, I get an email of, if they're going to close, usually within 3 hours, I get an email or a text of, we're very excited. How do we move forward? So.
Great. I love that. Martin, how about you?
Yeah, in an ideal situation, it's, at that second meeting, we're just sitting down, we're on a Zoom call because that's been my whole business, on Zoom and everything. But we're sitting down and they say, okay, we're just, when do we start? I mean, that's the ideal. But a lot of times they want to think about it, as Lacey was saying, you have a couple in the room, let them think about it. And I basically just say, okay, fine. Right. I just kind of let it go. Give a little time and then I follow up but I will follow up and ask. Right. It's different, it's different. I'm just calling, hey, how you doing? I'm like, literally, okay, would you like to still move forward? Like, because at some point you have to ask, we have to be comfortable with asking for the business, right? It can't just be like, hey, do you have any more questions or just kind of like a little fluffy kind of stuff? No, that's not going to work at that point, right? We've already met once, we met twice. I sent you this, et cetera, et cetera. Now, okay, are we going to move forward? Right. And if they are, then they'll say, hey, yeah, we're looking to, and a lot of times they'll just get back to you. Right. But if I have to follow up with them and ask, then they'll give me an answer, or sometimes they might just kind of blow you off and then that's that. But at least though, right? But the key is being comfortable and actually asking for the business. We've already, again, it's not pressuring them because you've already had meetings and you've listened and you've talked and you've spoken. Now it's like, hey, look, do you want to move forward? And to respect their time, respect our time as well.
Great. What does it look like if they say no? So do you ask for feedback? I mean, it's awkward to ask why, but I do think we all want to know that. Like, well, is it too expensive? Did I not convey the value? Did I not convey the plan? So I guess specifically, do you ask people why they're not going to move forward? And if you're not, tell us why not. Martin, what do you think?
I don't. I don't ask. To be honest with you, maybe I should, right? Sometimes in an email they might give you a little bit of, but you're not really getting the full story, right? I mean, sometimes they'll just won't respond. Again, sometimes they say, "Oh, not at this time," and right, again, you're not really going to get the full story. But no, actually, I don't ask.
Okay,
No.
no, that's great. Lacey, what do
Yeah.
you think about that?
Oh, you said we don't want to ask because it's so awkward and that kind of stuff. I live in awkward. Awkward is my neighborhood. Like that's where we moved in. We're here to stay. So I dive right into it. They're like, oh, we're going to go in a different direction. Honestly, that doesn't happen a lot. Once I get to the 30-minute call, the close rate is really high. It's like 85% or something. And usually the ones that, are not closing after that point, it's because something happened in their lives. So maybe another 10%. It's, oh crud, we don't have the money right now, or my grandma's back in the hospital, whatever the case may be, right? So usually it doesn't have anything to do with me, but I do definitely ask that, and I ask very directly, okay, great, I would love to hear about what advisor you went with, was there any feedback you'd like to provide? Some people will say, oh, we wanted somebody local and you're virtual, or whatever the case may be. I don't have a ton of examples because I don't have a lot that don't close. But the ones that don't close, they may have a good reason, but I'm definitely going to get that feedback because it's so valuable, right? If I chase somebody off because my prices were, they thought, oh, well, what you're giving for the price, that's important information. But if my price was just too high for them, that's where I'm kind of like, okay, well, do I take that information and use it to change my practice? Or do I recognize that I'm going to fall outside of somebody's price range, right? Like it's just going to happen eventually. So, but I will take any kind of feedback I can get. So I'm definitely asking.
That's great. I think it is a useful tip for people, especially if they're getting started and they're starting from scratch and maybe it's a new niche for them. Yes, it can be uncomfy a little bit to ask, but it can really help you hone in your process, your prices, your services. So if people are in this discovery phase of starting their firm, I think it's something to try out a few times, and you can maybe even do it in an email too, doesn't it? Sometimes that's an easier thing as humans to do than to do it on a Zoom meeting. So just a little tip for folks as they're working on this. Let's see, another question that was pre-submitted. So when starting out of college in this career, what were some things you wished you had learned at the start of your career with regard to closing the sale? So I guess as we look back, hindsight 2020, is there anything in your brain that maybe you would have done differently from when you graduated college to where you're at now that might have made you a better salesperson or anything like that? Lacey, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think the primary thing, is to remember that the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So just start. Don't be afraid to just start. You're going to have awkward encounters. Like I said, I live in the awkward neighborhood now. It's just where we are. And it's going to be part of it. So the more you can practice in that, and I don't mean I hate like role play kind of stuff. I mean, really get in front of real clients and start delivering your message. And you're going to screw it up. Just know that that's part of it. It's okay if you messed up a prospect meeting, and there will be more prospects. So don't be afraid of messing up while you're learning. Give yourself a break on that. And then also understanding not to take it so personally. You're going to hear that 1,000 times in this industry, and you'll hear that a lot through like XY's Academy and that kind of stuff. If you go through that, like, don't take the rejection personally, even if it is to do with you. If they're like, our personalities just didn't work. That's cool. There are 300 and something million people in the United States. Like, I do not have to be everybody's cup of tea. So just don't take it personally, even if it is a personal thing that they don't like about you. That's okay. Not everybody has to like you.
Absolutely. Martin, how about you? Anything that you would have done differently or wish you had done differently from the start of your career?
Yeah, just kind of going back, so I was, was not even on the revenue producing side, starting out at college. Those 13 years, I was working in corporate America. I wasn't even in business development, right? So like I said, I kind of took it from 2013, but the lessons from there, right? It's again, you just, again, it might be an overused cliche, but you just really have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? It is what it is, right? Like this is, and understanding there are plenty of people, right? I mean, if you mess up, it's fine, right? It's okay, right? I mean, again, we're not going to get to the whole marketing piece, but like if you're doing your marketing well enough, you'll get plenty of tries at this, and sometimes you might think you did a poor job, and that person might close, right? Versus you think, oh, like this person, they're definitely going to be a client, and then you don't hear from them in 6 months, right? So it's unpredictable. And again, just to embrace it. I know this is easier said than done, but just kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. You just keep practicing and understand that every time you try, you're moving the needle, whether you close or not, right? Just kind of embrace. I don't know if I've said embrace, like repeatedly here, but truly, like understand that. Okay, that didn't close, but that wasn't a wasted day. You gave it a shot, right? To try to get business, right? Because that's how you keep your business going, whether they close or not. You just have to just keep going and keep going. Yeah.
Yep.
You keep getting more, in baseball terms, more at bats, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And I think some of it too is like, what are you looking for in your clients, right? We want like transparency and vulnerability out of the people that we're going to work with, right? So I think bringing that to the conversations that you're having, like give out what you want to get back, right? And so if the more that you can just be yourself in any conversation is really what's going to draw people to you. That's what makes you different as an advisor, is that you are your own individual person. And that's really going to be, it's not going to be a script that you had. It's that the secret sauce in being a great salesperson is just being yourself. So that also cliche, but I do think it's important to hear that. Okay,
Amy, can I just?
I was about to say, I'd love to expand on that.
No, I'm sorry, Lacey, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to piggyback on what Amy said, but
same. So we can just go round robin here. But on the being yourself thing. So I worked for 11 different advisors before I became one. So that was part of I was an assistant, a CSA before I was a broker, is what we call them, right, at the broker dealer. But I did that for a while, and I noticed that something interesting is that most of the brokers' clients reflect them. And I see that too in the RIA world. Your clients reflect you as a person, especially the ones that are going to stick around, right? And ideally, we're all going to keep clients. The ideal holding time for a client and a stock is forever, right? Like we want them for 100 years. So being yourself and being able to show up as who you are, like if you think showing up in a suit is what people are expecting, and that's not you, please don't do that. I'm probably fancier today than I ever am because I also have other stuff to do this afternoon. Like most of my prospects get me exactly how my clients get me, which is in a ponytail and a t-shirt. So that's, be who you are, talk like who you are. If you curse in front of your clients while they're prospects, because if you accidentally do it once they're clients, that's a whole nother can of worms you don't want to open. And, if you are very casual and you don't mind if they're 10 minutes late to a meeting, then make sure you're open with that. Yeah, no problem. If it bothers you, don't let them walk all over you. Make sure you say, nope, sorry, I have a 7-minute no-show rule. We'll have to reschedule. Like set up the practice to be what you want it to be. And you'll have the clients that you love, which will help drive you coming back and really enjoying working with your clients. So being yourself is so important because it will change who you attract as clients. Because if you show up as somebody in a suit that's always 5 minutes early, and that's not who you are as a person, those are the clients you're going to get, and then you're going to be miserable.
Yeah. So true. Martin, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, it's like, because we're talking to people, who are thinking about opening their own firms. You have that opportunity, right? You can be who again, you're not working for someone else, right? So even say you're in a sales role, but you're kind of working for someone else, it's still like kind of marching to their tune, right? You can make this practice however you want to make this practice, right? And just being you, right? And being honest. Like me, I'm the type, as you could probably see, I'm just very transparent. Yes, I'm very structured and very formal at times, but just be real. Like keep it real with people. That's the way. And people take a step back, and so I kind of attract clients like that, right? We talk business. but we also have real talk,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't always have to be, okay, boom, 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 it's like we can, so, and you attract those type of people, those the kind of people who are going to want to work with you. But you have your own business here, or you're thinking about it, you have that opportunity.
Yeah, and what a draw, right, for launching your own RIA is that then you get that freedom. I mean,
Right.
that is like such a pain point for so many people that are working for someone else is I don't get to do this the way I want. I don't get to work with the people I want. So here's the perfect opportunity for that. Okay, so we got a couple questions here. So, what are your fee structures and how do you talk to prospects about fees who are fee sensitive? And then I'm going to add on to that. Do you have minimums that you require clients to have? So, Martin, do you want to tell us if you have a minimum and then talk us through your fee structure and then talking to prospects who are fee sensitive?
Okay, no, I don't have any asset minimums at my practice, because it's basically, you have to be a financial planning client, right? So I won't take any investment assets unless you're a financial planning client. So that's why I can say you can start from zero on the asset side, because I know I'm working with them on the financial planning side. I do charge $750 a quarter, for people who are single, $875 a quarter for those who are married. And that's for the full comprehensive financial planning ongoing, and ongoing. As for people who are fee sensitive with it, I'm back to being honest. If my fee is creating any sort of cash flow issues, then we shouldn't be working together.
Yep.
And that's not saying that in any type of haughty way, but it's counterproductive.
Mhm.
Right? Like I'm sitting here, I need to know that fee is a fraction of your income. That's getting into a whole another discussion and everything, but to know that you can pay that comfortably so we can really kind of get down to work. Right? Because again, if that's straining somebody, then this is not for them. Right. So, but just being honest about that, if they're fee sensitive and say, hey, look, then this is not maybe this is not for you, maybe this is not the right time. Yeah, so that's my response to like people being fee sensitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like we were saying, there's someone for everyone, right? So if they can't afford you, there is, because I know the biggest thing about XYPN members is that they're passionate about helping people get the help that they need. So they
Right.
do, I know you want every prospect being able to walk away and find financial advice that's the right fit for them. And so I think it's important that, they can still find someone. And I think that's one of the benefits about being part of any community, whether that's NAPFA, whether it's XYPN, Garrett Planning, whoever, is that you can then go to your community and say, I have this prospect. They're great folks, but they can't afford my fee. Otherwise I'd work with them, whatever that looks like. Right. So don't feel bad about not having someone work with you that can't afford you. Like, that's totally fine. There's someone else that can. So just wanted to throw that in there. Lacey, how about you? What do you think about this?
So I don't have asset minimums. I do have a minimum like financial planning fee. So I charge $1,500 up front, or if they'd rather do it monthly, I do $150 a month. I don't do both. I don't double dip there. And then I do manage assets. So I do 1%. I actually sell it to the clients as kind of a graduation mark. So I do 1% and I let that offset the fee that I pay, that they pay for the annual fee. So if they pay me, I have really young clients. So I have some people who pay me like $30 in asset management fees for the first year that they're with me. But you know what? I give them that $30 discount when they renew for the next year. And so I use that as an actual selling point. I tell clients, eventually you won't be paying me out of pocket at all. Your assets will grow. It comes directly out of the account. And then I have the opportunity to grow with you. So that keeps my incentives directly aligned with them, because, if more wealth they have, the bigger my paycheck is. And it also, a lot of my clients are first generation investors. So they're super new to investing. It also brings them some comfort to the fact that if I thought their account's like in a down market, I thought their account should be doing something differently, I would have already moved it, because that's not only, my accounts are invested in similar things, but my paycheck went down too. So clients actually love it. I get a lot of positive feedback from that. You talk about fee sensitivity. When you kind of frame it to what are the benefits of the ways that I charge, right? So I'm fee only. These are the benefits of being fee only, that nobody else is competing for my attention. I'm only looking out for your interest. And I kind of educate in the prospecting process about the difference in fee-based and fee only. And then I explained to them that I grow with them and that I'm intentionally cheap. I know that $1,500 is really low for an entire year of financial planning and a full comprehensive financial plan. I know that. And I do that intentionally because I do have really young clients and then I get to grow with them. Most of them have really high incomes. And so the fee is enough of a pinch to keep them invested. But then as they start to grow their wealth, the 1% becomes so small because it's been a part of their process the whole time. They actually really enjoy being able to grow with me. And even part of that sales process, I tell my clients often in prospect calls that my retirement goal for myself is to have 12 clients that I absolutely love. And I'm just going to take turns like vacationing at their different vacation homes just once a month. I'm just going to move and that's going to be the plan. And they love it. They want to compete to be the client with the best vacation home that they will actually keep around when we're both in our 70s. So it doesn't have to be an ick situation. And if it is, I agree with Martin, if it is causing stress for them, it is not the right fit. And there are all kinds of price ranges out there and there's all kinds of financial help out there. You do get really plugged in with XY to learn about different people's practices, different niches that they serve and different price points. Some people have courses that are even way cheaper than trying to hire a planner on their own that's really good material. You'll get to know people and find resources, which lets you kind of scratch that itch of making sure everybody gets to the right place. I don't think I've ever had to turn someone away without a resource to send them back to.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll remember that too, right? And then they'll remember, well, Lacey is actually the homesteader expert. So when they come across someone that they know that's looking for that, and they can already then speak to your services and they feel good about you because you still found them a home. So great advice there. Quick question for you, Lacey, for clarification. So someone asked, so Lacey does the $1,500 plus 1%. And for year 2, they get plan updates with $2,000 in assets, for example.
So I let that offset. So let's say, kind of use some hard numbers here. So let's say I have a client so they're paying $1,500 the first year. If I like doing it that way, because that lets the clients, a lot of times, especially in the broker dealer world, which is where I came from, the pressure to get assets moved is so much on clients, right? That we have to get it moved, so I can get paid is the reason, right? So I charge that $1,500 up front, no matter what. If it's a $5 million client, they're getting a $1,500 fee to start a process. And so if I bring them over and let's say they have $100,000 that comes over and they brought it over almost immediately, right, for math's sake. And so they paid me 1% on that. So they paid me $1,000. When it comes time to renew on their anniversary, they would only owe $500.
Okay.
So if the annual fee is $1,500. So they've already paid $1,000 in management fees. So they're only paying that $500. Ideally, they all age out and it's not an issue long term.
Great. That is super helpful. Well, gosh, we're getting towards the end here. So I just want to throw this out there of Martin, do you have any like podcasts, books, training, anything that you recommend for folks to check out? And sales specific would be great, or just financial planning is great as well.
Yeah, no, just do the CFP. Right. That's just like, that should really, I wish our industry would get to the point where that would be the minimum. That's another different conversation, but do the CFP, obviously credibility, education, et cetera. But no, from a sales process, there's a lady named Nancy Bleak. It's Sales Pro Insider. I had to write that down there. But yeah, that she does great work. I'll just kind of, we're running up on time here, but yeah, Nancy Bleak, Sales Pro Insider. I'm going to tell her that I mentioned her name on this call, by the way, but anyway.
Perfect. Still love it. We love Nancy. She's great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Lacey, what about you?
I would love to be able to recommend books and resources and all that stuff, but the best thing I can recommend is to skip over the books and actually get started, do something, start taking on your first client, especially if you have the ability to sign up, get going and do it on the side while you're still earning your primary income. Just get your feet wet. You will learn way more by getting active, learning, doing really embarrassing things, chasing clients away. You will learn way more actually doing it than you will reading 100 sales books. So that would be my encouragement, is just kind of bypass the books and get started. Don't wait.
Yep. I love that. Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. I think we covered a lot of ground. I think this is really going to be valuable for folks. So thank you both so much. So if anyone is interested in learning more about XYPN membership, we're going to drop a link in the chat to sign up for a call with one of our network navigators. Those are our own salespeople. And yes, thank you both again for your time today. Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday. See you, everyone.